Hi, everyone. So, today we're going to talk about what a civilization is and how they began. So, let's get started. So, what is a civilization? A civilization is a very complex society and it normally includes cities, it has a social structure, it normally has a government, and civilizations emerged after the Neolithic period once farming began and people started to settle in larger groups. So, what are the normal characteristics of civilizations? Normally, civilizations are made up of cities and permanent settlements of large groups of people. They have writing and record keeping. There's government and law enforcement. Religions and temples were very important in early civilizations, and social hierarchies and job specialization is also important. So, in the past, when civilizations first began, they developed near rivers, and that is because rivers provided fertile soil for farming, to enable farming. And since people started farming, there was food surplus. There was enough food for people to specialize in other fields of work. And because societies became more complex because of this, we started getting leaders that organized farming and defense and irrigation and laws, etc. And this is how early governments began and how over time civilizations became more and more complex as people started specializing in different roles outside of farming because of this food surplus. Writing also began and record keeping began, and that was mostly used for trade and taxes. Um, and one of the early forms of writing was cuneiform in Mesopotamia, and they used marks on clay tablets, like you see here. Later on in Egypt, they used hieroglyphics that you can see here, where they used a similar process, but they were using symbols like this to write down and keep records of um, things to run the society. So, religion was very important in early civilizations, and religion helped explain natural events and life in general for people. Temples were built, and there were rituals that were very important in these early societies. And religious leaders normally held a lot of power, and they were a lot of times. Associated with gods. So you can see ancient Egyptian deities over here, and they were very much related to pharaohs, which were the early leaders in Egypt, and they were associated with them. So leaders were very important, and they were associated with religion. Social classes and labor began once the labor specialization started. Once again, once there was a food surplus, not everybody had to farm, so people could specialize in other things. So we had, this is just an example, there were slaves, peasants, craftsmen, merchants, scribes, and pharaohs at the top in ancient Egypt. And because of this labor specialization, some people accumulated more wealth, some people had less wealth, and this created unequal um, societies. This is how societies became a bit unequal, and this is how social classes began. Um, so, why does it matter? Well, civilizations created lasting institutions, a lot of which still that are still relevant today, and influence future cultures. An example is Hammurabi's law code that developed in Mesopotamia, and a lot of this is still relevant today. For instance, the term "eye for an eye" came from this law code that was inscribed back then, and this created the foundations for modern society, including a lot of the major religions today came from these early civilizations or were influenced from these early civilizations. So, in the next video, we'll talk about Mesopotamia, which was one of the first civilizations in world history. We're going to talk about its city states, kings, and its writing form, which is called cuneiform, and how it was located in the Fertile Crescent and why that was important. Thank you. Bye.